Hey guys, welcome back to part 7 of this endless runner game tutorial series in Unreal Engine. And in this video, we are gonna work on the death system of our character, where if our character collapses with an obstacle, then our character will die and the game will be over. So stay tuned till the end of this video, and also you can download this whole project from my Patreon, so you don't have to make the whole game yourself and speed up your process. So do not forget to check that out, the link is in the description. So in the previous video, we were able to spawn these random obstacles in our road, but if our character collapses with them, then literally nothing happens. Like it just blocks the pathway of our character. But we want that when we collide with these obstacles, then our character dies. So for that, let's go to our base obstacle BP. And here, when our character will overlap with this death box, then our character will die. And don't worry about its placement for now, we are gonna change it in its child class. So right click on this death box, and from here select this on component begin overlap. Now this event will trigger when any object will overlap with this box. So first of all, we wanna ensure that the object that overlaps with this box is a player character. So here we're gonna check that this other actor is equals to our player character. So get player character. So to check this condition, get a branch, and if it is true, our character is gonna die. So for that, let's go to your character blueprint first. And inside here, let's create a custom event. And let's name this death. So in this custom event, we are going to write the logic of death system. So we are going to call this event when this condition is true. And since that event exists in our character blueprint, so we need to cast to our character blueprint in order to call that event. And through this cast, we can call that event. There you go. So when we overlap with that box, we are calling this death event. But here the thing is, we are calling that event through the casting. And casting is a bit expensive performance wise, and we have a better way to communicate between blueprints. And that is using blueprint interface. So in our content browser, let's go to BP interface folder, which we created earlier. And here let's create a blueprint interface, just like we did for the game mode. And let's name this character BP interface. Then open this up. And here let's name this function death. Now let's go back to our character blueprint, and here click on this class settings, and down here in the details panel you can add the blueprint interface. So just search for the character BP interface which we just created, and now we can define this function inside our character blueprint. So here just search for the event death. There you go. You can see it just seems like any other custom event, and we can define the logics just like we do. And the main advantage of using blueprint interface is that we can call this event anywhere without giving it any hard reference. And here we just need to give it a player character reference. And as you can see, now we can call that event without casting to our character blueprint. So after we overlap, we call this death event, and in this death event, now we can start writing the logic. So before that, select your character mesh component, and here in the detail panel, scroll down to the collision section. Here in the collision preset, we need to change it to ragdoll, like if you want a ragdoll effect when a character dies. So rather than changing it from here, we are going to do that at runtime. So for that, get mesh and search for set collision profile name. Here it is. And set the profile name to ragdoll. So this will just basically do the same thing. And after that, we can set simulate physics, and make sure to check this simulate option. So like all the forces in the world will take over our character, creating a ragdoll effect. And after this, get character movement component and disable movement, so that our character won't be able to move after it dies. And also get player controller and disable inputs, so the player won't be able to receive any inputs from the user. So this is how our character death system is going to work. Alright, so now what we have to do is, here we have to place this death box in the correct position in each of its child blueprint. So the character will die only when it hits the obstacle in the right place. So let's open up the first obstacle, and here let's scale this death box according to the obstacle size. Now make sure to shift this death box at the front of the obstacle, otherwise if it's at the middle and if our character jumps from above it, there's a chance it can hit the corner of this death box, which is like very unfair death of the character. So just make sure to shift it at the front. Now when you're done with one, then do the same with other obstacles. So as we are done with all the obstacles, let's play and test this. So let's see what happens when a character collides with this obstacle. Okay, there is no ragdoll effect, but the inputs and movement are already disabled. So that is happening because we haven't made any physics asset for our character yet. So go to your character mesh, right click, and from here create and assign physics asset to your character. And there you go. You can also modify these capsule collisions for your character body, but I'm just gonna go with default. And now when a character collides with any obstacle, there you can see we have this ragdoll effect that just looks like our character died. Now there is an issue with the obstacle, which is right this one, through which we have to roll. And we cannot roll through this since there's also a death box in front of this obstacle. Now to resolve this issue, let's go to our base obstacle BP, and here let's create a variable. Let's name this must roll. Make sure it's a boolean, and since we created this variable in the parent class, we can access it in any of its child class. So let's go to the obstacle 4 and set this variable to true for this obstacle, which is this one through which we have to roll. So for rest of the obstacle, the must roll variable is false and only true for this one. Now we did that so that we can identify these rolling obstacles separately from others to write a different logic for them. So go to your base obstacle PP and here check if this must roll variable is true or false. If it is false, then our character is just going to die as it should be. But if it is true, then we know that our character must be rolling in that case. Otherwise, it won't be able to pass through that obstacle. So to know if our character is rolling or not, we can use this isRolling boolean to check if our character is rolling. And here based on that, our character will either die or pass through the obstacle. But using this variable can create a lot of problem. Let me show you why. So in your content browser, let's go to our rolling animation and open this up. Now technically the rolling starts from here, even if our character is standing in this position. So how can the player pass through if the player is like this, right? And that isRolling boolean is true even if the character is like that. So instead, what we are going to do is, let me open the animation montage. So what we are going to do is, we are going to check if this animation montage is under a certain timeline. Like let's say, player can pass through the obstacle if the animation is any after the frame 3. So like to mark this, what we can do is, in the notifies, we can right click and from here we can add a montage notifier. Let's name this notify roll start. Now the rolling timeline should end somewhere around at the 17th frame, since after this our character starts to get up. So just like before, add a montage notify and let's name this notify roll end. So now we have these two notifiers, and to know if we are between them, let's create a variable inside your character blueprint and let's name this roll enough. Make sure it's a boolean. Now we are going to set this boolean to true or false based on if we are under these notifiers. So for that, in your roll moment, here when we play this animation montage, here you can see we have this execution pin which triggers on when it hits any of the notifiers. So using that we can update our boolean. Now for that, let's create a separate custom event and let's name this update roll enough boolean. Now to know at which notifier we are, we can use this notify name value. So for that, let's add an input parameter. Let's name this notify name and set the variable type to name. And from here search for switch on name. And from the detail panel, let's add two pins since we have two notifier names. The first one is roll start and the second one is roll end. Now here based on which notifier we hit, we are going to set this boolean. So set the roll enough to true when the roll starts and set it to false when the roll ends. Hope it makes sense. Now let's call this event here on notify begin and also give it the notifier name. So now based on that, it will change the boolean value. Now after this, we want to access this variable right here to check if we are rolled enough. And to avoid casting, let's do it using blueprint interface. So here let's add a function and let's name this get is rolled enough and give it an output parameter and make sure it's a boolean. Now here in your character blueprint, you must be able to see this blueprint interface here. So double click to open this, and here in the return node, we are going to give it the value of rolled enough boolean. And through this blueprint interface, we can access that boolean without casting to our character blueprint. You just need to call that blueprint interface function, that is get is rolled enough. And here in the return value, we have that boolean value. So now let's check if we are rolled enough or not. And if we are not rolled enough, then we are going to die. But if we are rolled enough, then what we are going to do is get obstacle mesh and here search for set collision enabled. And set this to no collision. Means we are removing any collision from that obstacle so a player can easily pass through it. So now let's compile. Oh, okay, so we haven't plugged any target to this event. Since it's a blueprint interface, it don't need a hard reference. So we can just give it this character reference. And now compile, and there you go, let's test this. So let's try to roll through this obstacle, and as you can see it's working. And this is a simple one, just jump. And for this next one, let's try to roll lately and see what happens. There you go, our character dies. So now we can roll through the obstacles. And one more thing I would suggest is, go to your base obstacle BP, select your obstacle mesh, and here in the collision section, change your collision preset to custom, and for the camera set it to overlap so that the player's camera won't be clipped by these obstacle mesh, like when we jump or roll through them. So that is it for this part of this tutorial series. If you really like this video, you can support me on Patreon, where you can get all the project files I've ever created for these tutorial videos. The link is in the description. And you can also join my Discord server, where you can interact with other developers of this community. And if this video really helped you out, you can like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I wanna thank the Patreon members of this month. Thank you so much for your support, it means a lot. Alright, till then, see you, bye bye.